Now that was a fun start to the season. NASCAR's return to Bowman Gray Stadium did not disappoint. Hey there, race fans. It's Race Day Top 5 with me, Frank 5. The Cookout Clash, an event where the drivers get back in the cars after a long offseason, get their elbows out, and put on a show for the fans. No points on the line, it's all about winning. This weekend, NASCAR returned to Bowman Gray Stadium for the first time in 54 years to host the Cookout Clash. And the entire weekend was amazing. The atmosphere, the fan attendance, the battles we saw on track, the heat races, the last chance qualifier, the main feature, everything was just perfect this weekend for NASCAR and their return to this incredibly historic stadium. And what better way to start the season than with the most popular driver bringing home the first checkered flag of the year? Let's get into all that happened at Bowman Gray. Number 1, Elliott dominates. Chase Elliott and the number 9 team gets off to a hot start to the 2025 season, winning yesterday's Cookout Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium, holding off Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, and Bubba Wallace for the victory. What a great weekend in general for Chase Elliott and the 9 team. From the get-go, from the moment the cars hit the track, Chase Elliott's car was so strong in practice. I watched that car go through the corners. He was pretty much entering their corner entry, was better than anybody else I saw the entire weekend. Didn't hit any of the drain covers or lipping the grass. His car was just so good through the corners and corner entry, diamonding in there, and then getting good corner exit off. And then we had the practice qualifying time event where you had all the drivers divvied up into certain groups. Elliott came out the fastest, and therefore he was the fastest car to start on pole for the first heat race. And he dominated that first heat race despite a couple of cautions behind him, but he went on cruise control once we finally got into a long green flag run, did not look back, and was able to win the heat and start on pole position for the main feature. And last night when the green flag dropped, that 9 car was on rails. So strong out front. Clean air, of course, means everything, but his car was just so good, particularly in those long runs. Now, towards the end of the first segment of 100 laps, the car started to fade a little bit after we got another caution, and he had some challenges from Denny Hamlin and Tyler Reddick, eventually getting passed by Hamlin with a couple laps left at the end of the first segment. But then when we had that halftime break, everybody came in, got their tires, and made some adjustments. Whatever adjustments they made to that 9 car, once we got a couple laps into a run, he was able to put the heat on Denny Hamlin, take the lead from him, and was able to carry on the rest of the way, leading. Even though we had a challenge from behind by Ryan Blaney, Elliott did not flinch one bit and was able to bring home the win, leading 174 of the 200 laps that we ran in last night's event. I mean, just total domination by this 9 team. And if you watched the pre-race show and when he was interviewed by Jamie Little, you could tell he was super happy. He was happy to be back in the car. He was very relaxed and he seemed very confident. Obviously, given how his cars performed in the practice session and the qualifying session and the heat race on Saturday, I don't blame him for being this happy. I mean, he was just so confident the entire time, and that 9 team deserves a lot of credit for bringing a fast race car. Now, of course, last year, Elliott was able to return to the playoffs after a 2023 playoff absence. He did win 1 race last year, but was very competitive throughout the entire season, having the second best average finish of any full-time driver last year. And he almost made it to the championship 4, but got passed late by Ryan Blaney. This time, however, he was able to hold off Ryan Blaney and get the W. And this start to the season is a big one for Chase Elliott and the 9 team. I expect them to have another multi-win season this year after the last 2 years, either winning 1 or 0 races. I expect him to have a very good season in 2025, and this is how you start it. Plus, history possibly repeating itself because his father, Bill Elliott, won the Clash, albeit at Daytona back in 1987. What did he do the following week? He won the Daytona 500, and that was the last time and only time Elliott ever won the Clash. So, Chase just won the Clash at Bowman Gray. Could history repeat itself and he will maybe win the Daytona 500 in 13 days? That's for time and fate to decide. But nonetheless, a great start to Chase Elliott and the 9-team season, winning last night's Clash. So, big congrats to Elliott and that 9 team. Number 2, from worst to almost first. Ryan Blaney may have been, other than Chase Elliott, the star of last night's clash at the Coliseum, because he started dead last, shotgun on the field, and drove his way all the way up through the field to second place and tried to get past that 9-car Chase Elliott, but he couldn't get the job done. It was a wacky weekend, really, for the 12 team of Ryan Blaney. They were pretty good in their practice sessions, but when they got in their heat race, they were just stuck in traffic, couldn't go anywhere, and then they got spun out midway, and thus had demoted Ryan Blaney to the last chance qualifier to have to go through so he could try to make the main feature. However, there was one rule for this entire weekend's event that benefited Ryan Blaney. The driver who had the highest points finish of anybody last year that did not make it to the main event would be given a provisional from being the highest in last year's points to advance to the main event, and that was in Ryan Blaney's back pocket. So he ran a couple laps this last chance qualifier and then saw a couple cautions. I'm like, we know we have the provisional, park it, let's get ready for the main feature. And it took him a couple laps throughout the beginning of that feature, but once Blaney got going and when we got a little bit of a green flag run, particularly on these flatter tracks that Team Penske has excelled at the last few years, especially on the long runs, he started to pick guys off one by one. He got into the top 10 at the end of the first segment, and then by the start of the second segment, he got a couple of cautions that kind of slowed down the progress of him in making a major charge, but found himself inside the top 6 on that final restart, and then he got himself up to second place with about under 50 laps to go, and as much as he tried to get by Chase Elliott, he couldn't negotiate the lap traffic better than that 9 car, even though there were some Fords in front of him, thinking if those Fords could hold off the 9 a little bit, then Blaney could have maybe had something for him. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't meant to be. But still, that shows you that the 12 team and Team Penske, once again on these flatter tracks, especially on long green flag runs, are going to be hard to handle this year. And Blaney was very proud of the performance regardless of the outcome, finishing second place. He was proud of his team, given where they had to start and how they were able to work their way through the field. He credited his crew chief, Jonathan Hassler, and the 12 team for making great adjustments to the car and showed some good respect and sportsmanship to his buddy when he drove by during Blaney's post-race interview. Blaney was able to go into the cockpit and just shake Chase's hand, congratulating him. They're good friends, and good friends face each other cleanly out there with respect as well. So a nice start to the season for Ryan Blaney, the 12 team, going from worst to almost first. Number 3, Hamlin fades late. Denny Hamlin showed last night that he's going to be one to handle this year, not only on the short tracks, but in general. Hamlin had a really good race car also the entire weekend, qualifying and performing well in practice and winning his heat race on Saturday. He put himself inside the top 5 at the start of the race, and in the first part of the race he was just kind of playing second fiddle to the 9 car, but then when we got a caution with under 20 laps to go, Hamlin really took the fight to that 9 car, and he was able to use the outside lane, which is something I didn't really expect for this weekend, to see guys work the high line and get good drive off the corner to pass somebody. But Hamlin was able to make that work at times when he was battling guys that he was racing with, like his driver Tyler Reddick. But how he was able to work past the 9 car, he was pressuring him on the outside, then he got right close to the back bumper off of 2, then made a dive to the inside into turn 3 and took the lead from Elliott and was able to be the leader at the end of segment 1. Segment 2, he was strong at the beginning, but once that 9 car got by him with about 70 laps to go, after that, Denny Hamlin's car started going backwards and wasn't really adapting to the racing surface. I think after the new set of tires may not have worked to his favor, maybe he didn't get enough temperature on those tires for those long green flag run at the very end, but regardless, he faded late and was not able to contend with the 9 or the 12. But Denny Hamlin once again showing he will be a threat this year, regardless of not being able to come up clutch last night. Of course, at least if Denny Hamlin won, I wouldn't have had to hear him say, I beat your favorite driver, right? We're way past that. You've used that the last few years. Don't even try and say that again this year, my friend. But a great performance by the 11 team of Denny Hamlin. And also, I'd like to give a shout out to him and 2311 Racing with their new airspeed facility we saw in the pre-race show. That place looks amazing. Whether you like Denny Hamlin or not, you got to appreciate what he's doing as an owner right now with that facility and with 2311 Racing. Boy, that thing looks awesome. Number 4, last chance qualifier chaos. Before last night's main feature, we had a last chance qualifier race, which would allow 2 drivers to advance via the top 2 positions, plus the driver who was the highest in points last year, getting out on a provisional, that being Ryan Blaney. And last night's last chance qualifier, let me tell you folks, was chaotic. There's a reason why they call this place the Madhouse, and last night's Last Chance qualifier showcased that on full display. From the get-go, guys were beating and banging, rubbing each other side by side. There were a couple of turnarounds from time to time. Of course, Ty Dillon started on the pole. He got turned around in the middle of the pack by Eric Jones. A lot of guys were beating and banging each other. Kyle Larson had to work his way through this field because he was in this event to try to get himself into the main feature, which he did, being the winner at the end of 75 laps. And Josh Berry in the 21 car, his new home with the Wood Brothers number 21, had a lot of damage on his race car, yet that thing drove all the way up inside the top 2 and finished second to advance. But a lot of the chaos transpired even around them, more so behind them when those guys were in those transfer spots. Guys like Austin Dillon getting at it with other drivers, Ty Gibbs, to the point where he made contact with a driver, I believe it was Justin Haley, who was kind of rubbing people the wrong way on Saturday. Gibbs made contact with Haley in retaliation and lifted the car off the ground, which I don't think NASCAR is going to be pretty happy with, so he may get a fine for that at some point this week, or just be given a verbal warning. But last night's Last Chance qualifier showed what Bowman Gray Stadium has been over the last couple of years for the local short track racers and the fans that come out to see these guys go at it. And we saw some, the local drivers from Bowman Gray Stadium that have won multiple times in last night's race. We had Burt Myers driving the 50 car, Tim Brown driving the 15 car. He's a full-time mechanic for Workware Racing, by the way. Burt Myers found himself inside the top 10 late in the race before he got loose off a 4 and then getting helped at the end by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It wasn't Stenhouse Jr.'s fault. The 50 car was loose on the outside, and the loss of control of his car, he came down to the track, and the 47 sadly was there, and the 50 car suffered the worst end of it with the hardest hit of the entire weekend of anybody that hit that safe barrier wall. But that Last Chance qualifier was chaotic from start to finish. They had more cautions than the entire main event. The main event had 7 total cautions, but they were only for minor spins here and there. The Last Chance qualifiers where the intensity really ramped up. And I'm surprised that there were no fistfights post-race, but I'm sure NASCAR probably would not allow that. Maybe it's just a shove or like a verbal conversation, but you didn't really get any of that. And for the first non-points event of the season, it's gotta feel pretty good that nobody's leaving with a black eye or bloody lips. But that Last Chance qualifier absolutely lived up to what Bowman Gray Stadium stands for. And number 5, the atmosphere at Bowman Gray Stadium. For the first time in 54 years, as I mentioned, NASCAR returned to this facility, putting Cup cars, albeit a little bit bigger in size with the next-gen car and what we have now, on a short quarter-mile track, duking it out on a Saturday night with heat races and a Sunday night main feature plus a Last Chance qualifier. And I gotta say, NASCAR, I think, I wouldn't call it a home run, but they hit a triple in baseball terms for this weekend's event. The whole weekend was outstanding. The fan attendance for Saturday's festivities and the entire event Sunday night, outstanding. As cold as it was, everybody showed out because they know what Bowman Gray Stadium means to them. They love their short track racing, and to have NASCAR return made it that much more entertaining and exciting. The fans loved it. They were interacting with the drivers and what was going on the track with thumbs up or thumbs down or obscene gestures, which I won't show on YouTube for younger kids that may watch. But that just shows you what Bowman Gray Stadium means to everybody. And the racing product this weekend was really, really good. I loved it. I really like it. I really hope Bowman Gray Stadium is the home for the Clash again next year and maybe going forward for the long term, because this track takes us back to our roots and what NASCAR started out as. Drivers racing on their local short tracks, working their way up through the rankings to get to NASCAR, and NASCAR to return our roots and have that event. I mean, it was just an outstanding event the entire weekend. Steve Phelps, everybody at NASCAR, phenomenal job. The whole atmosphere was just entertaining from start to finish. The fans were into it. The drivers were enjoying it so much. I mean, everybody, I think, walks out there, even though with some wrecked race cars, everybody walks out there with a smile on their face and thumbs up because that event was so awesome. As much as I did enjoy the Clash at the Coliseum the last 3 years, this was a more traditional short track event for NASCAR to have with the Clash. And it was a really, really, really good event. I enjoyed every single second of it. And I hope NASCAR and Bowman Gray Stadium agree to have this event again in 2026. And I would also like to give a shout out to NASCAR for naming this weekend's Cookout Clash trophy as the Bobby Allison Memorial Trophy. Of course, many of you know last year, in the last weekend of the regular season, we got the sad news that Bobby Allison passed away at the age of 86. But We love him, and we still honor him and his legacy he left for the sport. And I think naming the trophy for the Clash after him is a very, very sweet gesture. And also, we still can't get over how generous it was of NASCAR to give him that one win that didn't count for him back in the day, and they gave it to him right before he passed away. So, great event all around. Bowman Gray Stadium, NASCAR, job well done. Well, now we have a little bit of a mini week off for NASCAR as everybody's going to start preparing themselves as we get ready to head down to Daytona for Daytona Speed Weeks and the Daytona 500. Things will kick off next Wednesday night on Wednesday the 12th with Daytona 500 pole qualifying, which we will set the front row for the Daytona 500 who will start first, who will start second, and we'll find out which two open cars that do not have a charter will be the fastest two that lock themselves into the Daytona 500. And we've got a stacked roster of drivers trying to make the Great American Race, folks. And then we'll have the duels on Thursday that will set the starting lineup for the 500. We'll have the Truck Series kick off their season Friday night, and the Xfinity Series late afternoon, early Saturday night on Saturday the 15th, and then, of course, February the 16th, the Daytona 500 to kick off the season. I hope everybody enjoyed this weekend's racing at Bowman Gray Stadium in person and at home on television. Just a great weekend. It's so good to have them back. And it's great to have NASCAR on Fox back as they celebrate their 25th season of NASCAR, a quarter of a century covering the sport. What a ride it's been for NASCAR on Fox. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this weekend's race. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you like what you saw? Could you maybe see some changes going forward? Should this be at Bowman Gray going forward, or should we maybe make it a touring event and go elsewhere? Let me know what you think down in the comments below, but I hope everybody enjoyed this weekend's race. So, hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Subscribe, like, and congrats once again to Chase Elliott and the 9 team on their impressive win to kick off the season, winning the Clash at Bowman Gray. And I also hope everybody enjoys Super Bowl 59 this weekend on Fox. Best of luck to fans of the Chiefs and the Eagles as they will both duke it out for the Lombardi Trophy. Have a great weekend, everybody. Let's go racing!